Greetings and salutations, guys. This is my review of Presence, the new horror film from Steven Soderbergh, one of our most talented and eclectic directors. His career is just so fascinating, the way he jumps back and forth between big budget projects and very small budget projects and all sorts of genres. But I believe this is the first time, if I might be forgetting something, but I think this is the first time he's tackling anything in sort of that horror supernatural realm. This is a ghost story, and it has a very traditional setup, which is a family moves into a nice big home, and something is going on. There is something, a presence, if you will, watching them. Some unearthly being is around them at all times. The big difference here is the perspective of the film. This movie is all shot from the literal perspective of the ghost. We are always watching the ghost's point of view, watching this family. So it's all first person. The camera is the viewpoint of the ghost. It's not done in real time. I mean, it jumps, through different days. But it's always, all the scenes are following the ghost. So there's no editing, no cuts within scenes. So there's very long takes that are happening here because it's got to all play out as the ghost is seeing it, as this family is interacting. The movie was written by David Koepp, who also has an interesting career because he has written some huge blockbuster franchise movies. He's written Jurassic Park and Mission Impossible and Spider-Man and an Indiana Jones movie. But then he'll also do smaller projects that he mostly directs himself, including Stir of Echoes, which is my favorite of the films he's directed, which is a really cool ghost story with Kevin Bacon. If you've never seen it, you should check it out. So it's exciting that he was returning to that sort of realm here and teaming with Soderbergh again. They did the movie Kimmy a couple years ago that was on Max. And yeah, it's all kind of an experimental film, it feels like, because of its approach. It was only shot in 11 days. I do think the movie is good, not great. I definitely enjoyed what it was doing. There are some scenes that feel maybe a little extraneous, which is funny in a movie that's only an hour and 25 minutes. But for the most part, I think that the way it plays out and kind of the build with the characters and the little bit of a mystery element as far as, who is this ghost? What is happening here with this family? I was involved in that. The core family here of four is Lucy Liu has the mother, Rebecca. Chris Sullivan has her husband, Chris, and then their two teenage kids, which is Kalina Leong has Chloe, and the brother, played by Eddie Madej, has Tyler. And it's this small ensemble, but really Chloe is the main focus. If you were to say there was a main character in this movie, it's Chloe, because this girl has gone through a very recent loss. Her best friend has died, and she's a troubled kid. She's doing drugs. She's acting out. She clearly has a lot to deal with, and this thing has fixated itself on her. It spends the most time with her, and she's the one who's sort of sensing that it's there. I keep wanting to say the word presence, and I feel like then I'm supposed to take a drink or something. But she is sensing this presence. And why is that? What is it? What is it about her in this new house that would have this thing latching on to her? I was intrigued by that. It's a slow burn movie. And, it's interesting that the trailers really pushed it as being scary. I don't even think the movie's trying to be scary, because it's not trying to be like, oh my gosh, this thing might jump out and get us almost ever, because we're watching its viewpoint. So it's like, we know exactly where the ghost is at all times. That's not to say there aren't a couple moments that do have kind of a cool little jolt. And has, what is happening for the family is, of course, going to still be a big surprise to them, even if we know what's happening and where the ghost is. But yeah, it's not really at all trying to be a scary horror movie. It's perspective in every way, both literal, but also just in its overall approach is different from the norm. And that is what sets it apart. And that's what makes it interesting, but not like the super atmospheric type of ghost story that, might be something that grabs people more. I think the cast is really strong. I like that it's a mixture here of the veteran actors playing the parents with the two actors playing the kids who are very new to film. Yeah. Lucy Liu, obviously the big star of the bunch. And then Chris Sullivan, who a lot of people will know him from This Is Us, but he actually worked with Soderbergh before on The Nick. Great show if you haven't seen it. But then you got the two kids who I think this is the very first movie for Eddie Medei. And then Kalina Leong, I know she starred in a movie last year called Bad Genius. I haven't seen that movie. First thing I've seen her in. But yeah, they're all really good. They're all really good together. They're believable as a family. And there's a great through line as far as the father-daughter relationship. Because Chloe is going through so much and she is kind of feeling isolated, and her brother is kind of being a bratty teenage brother, and her mom has a lot of weird issues and sort of distance around her, but her and her dad have this really great bond, and there's some really sweet scenes between them, and I think Sullivan and Leong, they really feel believable as a father and daughter, and sort of showing that love between them. I actually wish we got to know Rebecca more. It is funny because Lucy Liu, clearly, again, the huge star of this bunch, but her character feels the one that needs more depth than she gets. There's a strange sort of subplot about things going on with her at work and maybe some shadiness she's involved in that kind of feel like they go nowhere. I don't know why. There's a pretty good amount of time spent on that where you'd think it'd be more important to the plot, and it's not, and it feels like just a sort of a strange element to even involve in this movie if it's not going to be at all integral to the movie. And then I just felt like there was some things that could have happened at the end. There were some big emotional beats at the end that really do land for me, but there was a couple things I wish that they'd also included. It felt like we didn't get some closure that I think the movie did need to have. A couple of elements at the end that I felt like, I don't know, that could have tied together more. But I still did enjoy the movie. I thought it was a cool way to do a ghost story. I did connect to these characters, and I really, was intrigued by what was happening to them. But yeah, it's one of those movies that, good but not great. It just sort of falls into that category. But I still just love that Soderbergh will do stuff like this and shoot a movie like this in 11 freaking days. And he has another movie coming out in 2 months because the guy just, it is so funny that a few years ago he said he was retiring. And not only is he not retired, he just keeps like cranking out stuff, and it's all like, even the ones that don't 100% land, it's like there's something cool about them or interesting about them, or you see why he wanted to try something like that. And I think it is it's really fun that he's dipping his toes into the horror realm here, but in his own way, in a completely different way. And it doesn't feel like he's trying to ape anyone else. In fact, he's going out of his way to not, by doing it the way he's doing it. So he's not trying to be like, I'm going to make the scariest horror movie ever. Instead, he's doing this observational ghost story that really kind of flips everything around. And yeah, for Kep, it's funny. I think Stir of Echoes is, a much stronger movie overall as far as what it's doing with this type of ghost story, and even one that's sort of centered on a house and a family. But I also liked that he got to switch it up here, and then in no way does it feel like he's repeating himself. It's really him seeing how he can do things on a different level. So a light recommendation for Presence. I think it really will affect people differently based on what their expectations are and what they're willing to accept from horror. It's so funny because so many times we see the cinema score for horror movies is really low opening night, even ones that I think are considered pretty great. And I think that's because people have very specific expectations for horror when they go in, and a lot of people want it to kind of push a certain button in them. If it doesn't, they feel like it didn't succeed. And so I think Presence will be one of those movies where some people will be like, what was the point of that? Because it didn't scare me. But if you can accept it on its own terms, I think that there is something worthwhile there. So those are my thoughts on Presence opening this weekend in theaters everywhere. That's it for now. If you can like and subscribe, I'd appreciate it. All right, guys, take care. Bye.